Andy Johnson, founder of the Fried Egg and the Shotgun Start podcast. He's at the U.S. Open currently.
Very
Taking
nice.
some time to join us. Andy, good morning. Thanks for joining the show, man. We appreciate the time.
Hey, guys. Great to be on. Hear awesome things about your guys' show from my co-host who lives in the D.C. area.
Oh, very nice.
Awesome.
Where are
Very
you
cool.
based?
Thank
Where
you.
are you based out of, Andy?
I'm in San Francisco, but from Chicago originally. So,
All right.
I got your guy, Caleb Williams, that we're hoping for a good year too.
Hey, he showed flashes for sure. My take is he'll be a roller coaster, but there's no doubt there's a ton of
He
talent.
definitely has a better coaching staff now than he did.
Yeah.
Of course,
That's
he
not
does.
even close.
Andy, I
Can't
forgive.
get worse.
Yeah, right.
Forgive me, but I just right as you come on, I pull up your Twitter feed. Right, I should have done this a little before. I have to know the story that's 2 years old about you getting ejected from Augusta.
That's like a golf term for getting smoked on the golf course. I didn't get ejected from the golf
All
course.
right, so it's clickbait.
per se.
Clickbait. You got me.
Okay.
That's the art of the headline these days,
Yep.
right? Is that just entice people to click. Nobody reads anything anymore; they just read headlines, right?
That's very true. All right, so you're at Oakmont, and Valdez is complaining. He goes, this is just the same old shtick every year. Everyone complained about the rough, and then everyone's putting all their images of their ball disappearing. Ben Martin had the famous one they put out there, a very viral clip. But some have argued that this is really extraordinary, like 5 inches of rough. It is it's more than the typical U.S. Open rough, correct or no?
Yeah, everybody, the rough videos are just catnip every year.
Yeah.
It's like who can run out to the golf course be the first one to film a rough video, it gets
Right.
all the social impressions. But I think this year is different. They've had a very wet year here, and obviously they applied a ton of fertilizer to make the rough thicker.
Right.
The other cool thing about Oakmont, when you mow your lawn, after you get done, how that grass just stands straight up.
Yeah.
So they have custom built mowers at Oakmont that they change the blade height on them. The standard one, I think the highest cut is 3.5 inches. They have the ability to cut rough at 5 inches. So you get the effect of it standing straight up, which makes the golf ball fall straight down.
Yeah.
So when you see the mowers out there, it's it's making it harder. It's not making it easier because the rough is really thick and then the ball falls right to the bottom of it. So yeah, the rough is gnarly.
I mean, it looks
but the
borderline
thing is,
absurd.
Right.
I will say that one thing is that the fairways are so soft from all the rain that the fairways are effectively wider, right? Because the ball's not hitting and rolling off the fairway. So, it's kind of a give and take. But yeah, the rough is insane. It's nuts.
Are the
It's
fairways
absolutely crazy.
wider to compensate for it a bit?
Yeah, because of how soft it is, just from all the rain, they're playing wider, and then they're a little bit wider in certain spots from the last time they hosted the U.S. Open. I think if you're looking at who to pick,
Yeah.
you got to have an A+ driver of the golf ball this week.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of people look at the top of the bucket, and obviously Scotty Scheffler is the overwhelming favorite,
Mm-hmm.
and he drives the ball as straight and as far as anyone, that combination.
Mm-hmm.
But then I would look at a lot of guys that if you're looking at sleepers, is who are really good drivers who might not be the longest guys, because a few holes take driver out of your hands here at Oakmont, and it's going to be so much about being in the fairway.
Mm-hmm.
That tells me Morikawa, because Morikawa currently is number 2 in driving accuracy this year. So I think Morikawa's got to be one guy that you're looking at.
Exactly. Great iron player too. One of the 3 best iron players in the world, really accurate driver of the golf ball. Another guy that was in the mix at the Masters, and we've seen him in the mix at a lot of majors that I like, is Corey Connors, the Canadian at I think he's 70-1. So,
Have you figured out a way? I don't know where you stand on the gambling. I'm sure you guys have gambling affiliations, but I'm just assuming every podcast does. I mean, do you have?
We don't have any gambling affiliations.
Really?
Well,
you need to get one. You need to get one.
It can be lucrative.
Very lucrative. But so
I know we're missing out on the high times. The Wild West right
I'll
now.
have the FanDuel people reach out to you. Trust me.
Make a call.
Hey, listen. But so do you wait? Like I was talking to Valdez and the guys even during the show today. Like I got to figure out a way. I always see all these bets. It looks so tantalizing. Oh, I'll take him plus 1,200. Of course he could win. I end up losing. I take 10 guys that I got all this money on, and the one outlier that I don't have wins. Have you figured out a betting strategy, or do you stay away from that?
I don't really bet. I think like the hard thing with golf right now is we've entered this era. I think so you got like Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, Jon Rahm, Xander, and I would say Morikawa's on the fringe, but those 5 or 6 guys have really separated themselves and feel like, especially at majors, like a class above the rest of the field, to the point where, we're on this run of like incredible major champions, and you're starting to feel like, the PGA is a perfect example of this. Scotty Scheffler opens with 2 under par round. The leader, I think, was at 7 under, and there's a bunch of names in between. And, if you cover the sport regularly, you're looking at the leaderboard and you're like, I know what the leaderboard says, but effectively Scotty Scheffler leads this tournament at 2 under because I don't think any of these other guys can hang on to win the tournament.
Right.
So I think like, with the live stuff, everything that's happened in pro golf with the split, what's happened is these major championships are the only 4 times a year that all the best players in the world are together, and it's made it harder to win because like there's an increased importance in it. It's kind of like where like when you get more and more into a playoff series, say like the NBA, at the ends of games, like you start to see like it comes down to the stars. It's less and less about the role players, especially if they're on the road. They don't hit shots. Like at the end of major championships, it seems like these guys that are like the 15th to 20th to 35th best players in the world just cannot keep up over the course of 72 holes with this class of really great players.
Well, you know what's funny about that? Well, 2 things. First of all, I thought Phil Mickelson kind of famously explained that, right? When Tiger was in his heyday, that like Tiger could shoot like even par on the first day or 1 or whatever, but he's better than and so each day he's just going to go, do his kind of normal thing or whatever, and everyone else is just eventually going to fall to the wayside. So that when you have 4 days, like, of course, like Scotty's going to be there at the end because he's just going to grind out.
Because he's just so much better
every
than
round.
everybody.
He's just going to grind out his round. Doesn't matter what he does in round 1. He's going to grind out something and by the end, there's going to be like 3 other people potentially.
Well, it also helps that like Andy's saying, that he's such a good driver of the golf ball.
Of course. But it's kind of like when you talk about the 15th, like Sam Burns is a remarkable player. This guy, Fox from New Zealand, what's his first name? Ryan Fox. The guy's a stud.
Yep.
Those guys played that par 5 4 times, couldn't birdie it in the playoff with the crunch time. Like Burns misses a 5-footer.
Burns missed like a 7-footer.
Everyone does that. Everyone's played golf. You get it. But like, Scotty Scheffler's not missing that putt with the tournament on the line, or
probably
he's going to birdie. You know what I mean? It's kind of to your point there that there's something special about that elite versus the others who are incredible. They're just not like those top 5, 6 guys or whoever you might want to say. You agree?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of years ago, Brooks Koepka got a lot of heat, but he was so spot on. He basically said majors are the easiest tournaments to win because the golf course gets really hard. And when the golf course, it's like the famous, all these golf courses tried to tiger-proof their golf course. They made them longer, narrower, more rough, and all it did was play more into Tiger's hands, right? A major championship, the level of the golf course, especially this week at Oakmont, is going so far up in terms of like difficulty and the demand it asks players, the shots that it asks the players to hit, that it reduces the number of players that could conceivably win. If you wanted a wide open tournament, you would want to host it at like a 6,400 yard course with very little penalty, because then it's going to be harder for like the skill to separate. So I think like that's one of the things that's fun about the U.S. Open is it kind of ratchets it up the difficulty, and you see these guys hit shots that they aren't going to hit week in, week out, because the golf course, especially Oakmont, just demands a higher level of shot making than your standard PGA Tour course. So I think that's where you're going to see, like, there are a couple guys that are outliers that I think can hang around, but I would expect one of the big names to win this week.
We're joined by Andy Johnson, founder of the Fried Egg and the Shotgun Start podcast. He's at Oakmont for the U.S. Open. And part of what's cool about this event is a guy like Max Homa, who's won on tour before, doesn't qualify. He was here at Woodmont. He fell just short. But a guy named Matthew Vogt, a dentist, shot 68 in both rounds at Walla Walla and grabs one of the spots at a course where he used to be a caddy, like when he was like a teenager. So that, like, those stories, those human interest stories, are part of what makes U.S. Open great.
Yeah, it's, obviously it's the identity of the championship. I grew up playing competitive golf, and from the age of 16 on, like, you're playing local qualifiers, and the night before you go to bed for a local qualifier, you start dreaming of, like, hey, if I have a good day tomorrow and a good day in a couple of weeks, like, I could play in this U.S. Open. And Matt Vogt's like a perfect example. I talked to somebody that was out with him yesterday. He's got like 190 ball speed, which is like extremely high. I mean, you're talking about like somebody that can move the ball like 330, 340. The guy that said he was hitting it as good as any of the tour pros, and that qualifier. I mean, he was the medalist. He didn't just like sneak in. He won the qualifier. So it should be. It's kind of a great story. It's what makes this tournament amazing. Is like the regular Joes, and then also like. If you think back a couple years ago at Erin Hills, Xander Schauffele was a struggling PGA Tour rookie, had not played well at all. He qualified into the Erin Hills U.S. Open. I think he finished 5th there, and it effectively started. He won later that year, and it started his rise to one of the great players in the sport. Obviously, he's won 2 majors since then, but he's also, I think his worst finish in a U.S. Open's 14th. So it can also be kind of this opportunity for young players to qualify in, and then it's, they're playing in this big tournament that would take otherwise years to qualify into via world ranking or PGA Tour status. So I think that's the other cool thing is you're going to see some young players. There's a kid, Ben James, that's in the field that's a really great amateur. Jackson Coyven, who already has earned his PGA Tour card. He's going to be going back to school. So you also get a look at young players. The last time that Oakmont hosted the U.S. Open, Scotty Scheffler shot a 68 in the first round as an amateur. So it gives you a glimpse at who's coming up too.
All right. So my guy Brendan Porath told me that you're a big Rory guy. What are his chances here?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about Rory because we were talking about driving accuracy, and Xander too. Xander is not hitting the ball in the fairway this year, and that's a small sample size because he's battling back from that injury, but in only 9 events. But he's 164 on tour in accuracy. Rory is 173. So do you count those guys out just based on that category?
I don't think you can feel great about Rory's chances. Pre and post Masters win, he's just been a different golfer. The sample size is small, but it seems like trying to find he's had to switch drivers. His driver was non-conforming at the PGA,
right? And
it seems like he's really struggling to find a good driver for him. So if you can't drive the ball in the fairway out here, you're gonna have a really bad time. So I think Xander, I think the stats could be misleading because he's been working his way back, but
right.
he just hasn't driven it as well as you drove it last year or putted as well as last year. But that's one of those things where it can click on for either of those guys. It's hard to count them out. I just would like Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Scotty Scheffler, and Morikawa probably a little bit more in that top tier.
You didn't give us a score, did you? I mean, is it going to be one of these guaranteed over par winning scores? What is your guess?
Oh, allegedly, not allegedly. I mean, the membership at Oakmont is demanding over par. They want over par.
Right.
I think that with the rain and the golf course being soft, it's going to be. I would guess if I had to guess, it'd be 4 under is the winner. I just think it's so hard. I think people still associate with this par, but the reality is he's hit 50 yards further than when your dad was talking about even par being, the U.S. Open's identity. And I think like the modern U.S. Open, the reality is par is like 4 or 5 under is like what real even par is.
Right.
That's what the last time it was played there, DJ finished at 4 under.
With that penalty that they gave him, that was like an absurd penalty.
Right.
If you guys remember that.
But in other words, the rain's going to soften up the greens. It'll be a little bit of throwing darts at it, a little bit.
Yeah, I think they'll still be pretty firm, but the fairways are going to play functionally like 10 yards wider.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the greens will firm up, but the fairways are going to be where you're going to see the effects of the rain the most.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, you were talking about the live guys. Give me your thoughts on Joaquin Niemann, who just has been balling, just won here at RTJ in the live event here in Northern Virginia. Give us your thoughts on Niemann this week.
I think, he finally last major played well. It'd been, he contended at the Masters, I think the COVID Masters years ago, but then he had struggled in majors. And it's like, I think that one of the hard things for those live guys is like, nobody knows how to judge the live events because it's a closed shop. Half the field is pretty garbage in terms of like quality. And Niemann is like, he just hasn't played well in majors and he keeps winning these live events. He is he's been a phenom. He turned pro at 18. He's been, like you start to look at his career, I think he's 26 or 27. And it's like, God, he's been around forever. I think like now that he's played well in a major, I think that's going to take a lot of pressure off him. I would expect him to play well. This is a good example of a player that the rain helps is Niemann. He hits it a little bit lower than a lot of the top flight guys. And like, that's kind of like a common skill among the elite players in the game is they hit it really high. So when the greens get firm, they're able to hold greens better because of that high trajectory. So with it being a little softer, that does help Niemann a lot because it comes in a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Andy, thanks a lot for
Good
the time,
stuff,
man. We appreciate it. Have fun out there this week. We'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
All right,
man.
appreciate it, buddy.
Andy Johnson, founder of the Fried Egg and the Shotgun
Pretty
Start podcast.
Knowledgeable dude.
You can follow him on Twitter at AndyTFE.
You said have fun out there. It's actually up there.
Up there. My bad.
Now he got
We were
you.
admonishing JP just yesterday for that, so
Yep.
I should have known better.
Yep. You should have said up there.
All right, we're the Junks. We'll be right back.